So, today I'm going to be assembling the Ghar Outcast Rebel Mag Cannon team. This is one of the Rebel support platforms for Gates of Antares. The Rebel Ghar are actually a really great faction, and one of their strengths are the amounts of weapon teams they can bring. They can bring loads of cheap infantry, but they've got loads and loads of weapon teams as well. However, they take a bit of assembling. This will be the fourth of these weapon teams that I've put together, getting ready for the Antares event at the end of this month. And let's have a quick look. 3 legs, 1 and control part, arms, control console, power source, mag cannon, 2 crew members on foot, and 2 pieces that attach to the bottom of the control console. 1 holds the mag cannon, 1 holds the reactor. So I'm going to clean these up, take the flash off and get ready to assemble them. I will be pinning this model because pieces like this, if you glue it to here, probably with anything less than epoxy, it's going to come off. So I'll be pinning it, I'll be pinning the legs, I'll be pinning the gun. So in total there'll be 6 pins in this model. Some bits can just be glued, so these pieces can just be glued to the things that they attach to. These guys can just be glued to the stands, but these pieces will get pinned so that they are very solid. There's the possibility that it'll get dropped at some point, and if I've pinned it, it's not going to shatter into a million pieces. And if I pin it, it can take the rigours of being played with on the tabletop. So I'll be back in a minute with all the models cleaned off, and I'll show you the points that I'm going to pin. So I've cleaned the pieces up and I'm ready to start assembling some of them. I'm going to start with gluing the crew members to their bases and then putting them to one side. Because that's literally all those need. I'm going to take a little bit of liquid green stuff, which I use to just help things stick and sort out any little gaps. And I'll put a little bit of that in here. This is the control column piece that attaches to these arms. It's small, which is a bit of a pain, and you've got to make sure to have this bit here pointing down when you assemble it. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue in here, push that in hard. So that is then going to go into these arm plugs here and fit into this column here. So, looking at this, I've got to drill 12 holes. I've drilled 3 in the bottom of the control column already. Those are for the legs to plug into. I've drilled 1 here for the mag gun to go into. I've marked with an awl where the corresponding hole needs to go. So I've now drilled a hole in there using a 12-volt drill and a 1.2mm drill bit. That's the correct size to put a paper clip into that hole. So I'm going to get a tiny bit of green stuff, put it in this hole along with some glue, and I'm going to put the paper clip in. So this is the first of 6 pins. So that'll take a minute or 2 to dry. On this, there will be pins in each of these legs going along these points. So I'm just going to zoom in and show you in detail. The pins will go 1 in the gun, which pins it to here, 1 in each leg, which pin them to here, 1 in each of these side pieces to pin them to here. And again, I'm going to need to be very careful where I put these pins. because this is a fairly thin piece, so it needs to go towards the top of here, like so, not towards the bottom, or that will tear up the metal here and it'll just come out. So it's got to go pretty much exactly at the top, slightly to the right of this plug, in order to slide in and plug in. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pins, 5 of which are going to go into the control console and 1 of which is going to go into here. This is light, a bit of glue and a little bit of green stuff will just drop into here, a bit of glue and a bit of green stuff, and these arms and this console here will plug into here and here. This has got 3 points of contact where you can glue it, so that's very solid. It's these pieces which are quite heavy but don't have huge points of contact that are getting pinned and green stuffed, and I'm doing that. I suppose an alternative would be to use an epoxy resin cement, which would take about 24 hours to dry. That could be done, but you might need to still put a guide pin anyway in order to get it to stay in during that drying period. But I'm going to come back with pins in all of these ready to just plug it together. I've now put all the pins in that I need to. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can see these pins are actually probably the most necessary, because you've got a point of contact that isn't necessarily 100% great, so you need this to make sure that things stay in. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put this and this on this and this, because then suddenly the number of pieces I need to assemble gets smaller. A little bit of glue, and in it goes. Push it in quite hard, so the green stuff goes in like that. Got a little bit more green stuff. A little bit on each side of the gun. Then a good dot of glue there. And a good chunk there. And then in this guy goes, you've got to make sure to get him going in the right direction. So this nipple bit here is towards the back. So bang, in he goes. Push that in quite hard. So then you've got these bits ready to go onto here. Next you're going to put the arms and the control console on. Tiny bit of green stuff here. Bit of green stuff here. I'll actually take some of this out, that's too much. And a bit in the bottom of here. Gonna pull these arms apart a little bit so you're able to get them in. Then glue here, and glue in the bottom. And then coming in from the top, get these pieces together, get that locked into there, and then push those arms in so they bend back into place. So that's now the control column and the arms in place. Wipe the glue off my fingers to stop me sticking to anything else. And then the next most important piece, getting the gun stuck on. Again, a little bit of green stuff, and then glue. So then you can see the hole in the pin. They go together, but you've got to get everything else holding into place as well. And this is the heaviest piece of the model. Try and maximise the contact. Because as you can see, it should go in like this. But it's a tough piece to get to stick. And you can see already there's some movement despite it being pinned. So that is going to get left to dry for a few minutes after a bit of wrestling to get both the pin and the tiny peg, this, into position. So I'm going to have to hold that for a few minutes while the glue dries. So I'll be back with you in a minute. This is now dried and is fairly stable. This is probably the most important piece to get right on this miniature because it's the heaviest piece. Once you've got this done, getting this bit plugged in is nowhere near as difficult. And see, that fits tightly and snugly without even being glued. So I'm now going to add a little green stuff and a little glue to it to get that on. So I put a little green stuff here over the little peg. And a little green stuff there. I'm also putting a little bit of green stuff in this hole here. So, super glue. And then bang. So, but again, I've got to make sure that this stays in properly. So I've got to hold it for a minute until the glue starts to set. You've got this gap here at the front, right here. You can fill that in with green stuff if you like, but as I push it, the gap gets a little bit smaller. So that's that. With that done, I'm going to take a little green stuff and I'm going to put the legs in. Just need a little bit in each of the leg holes, and then I pop those in and we're done. I don't have any 2-part epoxy to attach to the base, so I'm going to have to go out and buy that, but I'm sure everyone watching is familiar with 2-part epoxy and it's not a huge deal that needs to be explained to you. So now a little glue and the first leg goes in. A little glue and the second leg goes in. A little more glue and the third leg goes in. So that is the Mag Cannon weapons team. So you put them together and you'll stand quite nicely on the base. I'm going to pop that like that, wait for the legs to dry. I've already put together other weapons teams, so you can see this one's the simplest. The quad mag repeater, you need 3 pins for the legs, that's it. Everything else just slots into place and glues in. The mag light support needs exactly the same number of pins as the mag cannon, and the only difference between the two is the gun. So this is, however, a little bit less heavy, and a bit easier to get this to join in. Again, I've used glue and a little bit of green stuff in this gap here. You can't really do the same at the back. It's okay if your Ghar Rebel weapons teams look a bit scrappy, because they are rebels. It's not like they're Empire and they've got uniform equipment. Overall, the kits take a little bit of time to put together. So I've got 2 disruptor cannons, a quad mag repeater, 2 mag cannons and a mag light support. So in my 1,000-point army, so that's 6 weapon teams. So they'll take a little while to all get painted, and I'll be painting them in one big group. But in terms of their use in the game, they're really good. You're able to put lots of pins down on things, you put a command squad with them, and you can order them all to fire at once. Which means suddenly your enemy tank is taking 2 mag cannon shots. It's taking 2 disruptor cannon shots. You're able to burn the drones off it and then start hitting it with mag cannon rounds. You're able to start dropping multiple pins on enemy infantry before they can move, thus preventing them hopefully from getting any activations at all. Rebel weapon teams are a real strong part of the game. The miniatures are really good. You've got 3 crew miniatures, the guy pointing, the guy carrying stuff, and the guy with binoculars, plus the guy in the little weapons battery. So yeah, I like them. The design aesthetic is quite good. The only thing I really wish was that this was one piece. So you get this and you just plug it into a one-piece socket, and then you plug in the gun and you plug in the reactor. Because having it be 2 pieces is an absolute pain in the backside. But it's built. So only thing left for my 1,000-point force now is the attack crawler, which will be the next video that I do. If you've liked this video, hit like or subscribe. If you feel strongly, leave a comment below. Otherwise, good gaming.